I was initially only going to talk in this video about how Sony is bringing their PlayStation games to other consoles now, but I will also talk about why I think this is Sony strategizing for the next generation of their consoles by basically giving up on this console generation and also preparing a handheld console. And I also think it means that Nintendo is about to start dominating even more in terms of console sales as we head into both the fall and holiday seasons. And yeah, JRPGs are definitely going to play a part in that domination. Now, let's not waste any time. The reason I say JRPGs are going to play a factor in that is that we already see Pokémon Legends ZA as the best-selling game on Amazon in Japan, and it has the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 version both taking up the #1 and #2 spots in the video game category. And you also have to factor in that there's people that won't be buying the game from Amazon and also are just going to wait until the game releases to actually purchase it. You also have the fact there's going to be a Dragon Quest 1+2 HD 2D remake releasing, as pointed out by Stealth in this tweet, and that's going to sell very well in my eyes since the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake sold over 2 million copies in less than a month when that released last November. We also have the rumored Nintendo Direct that seems extremely likely to be happening this week, and between a number of games we're waiting to find out release dates for and also the number of rumored JRPGs that could be coming to the console by the end of the year or just in the first half of 2026, we could be getting a lot of Nintendo Switch related news as well as JRPG news within the next 2 months, as we'll have Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show happening in August and September respectively. And of course, for these multi-plat JRPGs, people can play them on any console, but the Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2 are the preferred ways to play in Japan. The Nintendo Switch 2 has already sold close to 2 million units in Japan alone, while the base PS5 in its lifetime in Japan has only sold 5.7 million units. Of course, clearly Sony has shifted their attention more towards the Western market over the last 10 to 15 years, so that makes sense, but get ready because I think Nintendo is about to pour on the console sales over the final months of 2025 and especially during the holiday season. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet barely worked on the Nintendo Switch 1, yet sold over 26.7 million units as of Nintendo's last update, and those games run incredibly on the Switch 2, so I bet we see another big sales jump for that game next time Nintendo holds a briefing. And I say all that to say, if Legends ZA runs well on the Switch 2, which I anticipate it will, this game will definitely push Switch systems out of the door, especially with that Pokemon Legends ZA Switch 2 bundle that will be releasing alongside the game. So Nintendo's sitting pretty right now, and honestly, like I said before, I really think this is Sony giving up on this generation of consoles, and honestly for good reason. We've already heard Hideki Nishino say that the PS6 is top of Sony's priorities right now, and of course for any corporation, especially one like Sony, their #1 focus is always profit, but of course they're also thinking about what they're doing next. With Sony pushing out a low power mode in their newest beta for the PS5 system, this pretty much confirms the rumors that we've heard that there's a new handheld coming from the PlayStation brand or Sony down the pipeline. This being official is super interesting because back in June we heard the news from a PlayStation leak about a low power mode, which was initially what fueled the rumors of Sony creating a new handheld console. And in said article from June, they talk about how Moore's Law is dead, which is a great YouTube channel by the way, speculated that Sony is setting things up for the future with this low powered mode. By getting developers to support this low power mode now, Sony would be making it much easier for developers to support this if and when they do launch a PlayStation handheld. Going on to say, this could be the beginnings of PlayStation handheld support. They're adding a flag early on where you have a game keep compatibility, but it runs at significantly lower power with slightly different specs. And as Mystic on YouTube pointed out on episode 684 of Let's Talk PlayStation, as they're in this transitionary period right now, implementing this mode is big and is something that, while most likely not a mandate for developers to support right now with their games, of course, could be mandated depending on what they end up doing with this handheld and what kind of games run on it. Now, I don't think this should be surprising, as from everything we heard, the PS Portal sold pretty well and there was a genuine demand from consumers for this device. And that thing was still reliant on a PS5 console and Wi-Fi to run your games and stream them from your console. So if Sony did go all in on a handheld console that could play PS5 or maybe even PS6 games and run them well, I would say that yeah, it would definitely sell well and would be a big hit. Now, my big thing is that of course, while Sony has been porting games to PC already, I don't think they're going all in on porting their games to other consoles in the way that Microsoft is. While not an older game, as it did launch in early 2024, we already see that Sony will be bringing one of their games, Helldivers 2, to the Xbox platform in August. Ironically enough, on the same day that Microsoft is bringing Gears of War to the PS5. But I definitely won't be surprised if they bring over some newer releases eventually. I also think Sony is setting up by just really preparing their future handheld consoles by porting games over to the Switch 2. Really just by seeing how well those games will sell on a handheld console like the Switch Switch 2, and also just really dipping their team's feet into the water in terms of getting ready for their handheld console in the future. Of course, I don't think the PS5 is dead in the water or that Sony is just going to stop trying with the PS5. Of course not. I just think for the most part their focus is really on the PS6 and their handheld as of right now. I think the PS5 definitely has a chance to probably sell around the same amount of units as the PS4 did, but I think they're just learning from that now, Sony, and they're just really trying to see how they can better prepare themselves for the next generation and just how they can really blow the PS4 and the PS5 out of the water in terms of sales. But I do truly believe that GTA 6 will sell Sony a lot of PS5 and PS5 Pro consoles, as I think there's definitely a lot of people that will buy a PS5 just for that game. And also the fact that now we've seen the Xbox with the price raises to the Series X and S, and many people might just opt for the PS5 instead, even though of course the Series S is still cheaper than the PS5. We heard those rumors not too long ago that GTA 6 will have a dedicated performance mode for the PS5 Pro, and I do think that Sony will sell a lot of PS5 systems alongside that game, even though of course it isn't a PlayStation exclusive or a Sony first party title. But that's probably just due to many factors, including the fact that I think Sony is going to have the marketing rights to position their logo next to that game in commercials, trailers, and advertising. So things aren't total doom and gloom for Sony, but I just think Nintendo has definitely cemented themselves on top as of right now, and that's probably going to remain the case for quite some time. Maybe GTA 6 does shift things around a bit, as when that game releases we definitely get to see what happens in terms of PS5 sales, and we don't know when that's coming out because it could get delayed once again. But even with that said, I do think that Nintendo is smooth sailing for quite a while, and with the Direct looming, it seems like Nintendo's going to be locked and loaded even more than they already are now, and that's not even including any of the games or different things that we could be hearing about from Nintendo, or just games that could push their console at Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom. And I do also think the RGG Summit will do very well for the Nintendo consoles, as I think that, yeah, there probably will be some of those Yakuza or Like a Dragon games that will be included in that showcase and will be shown coming to the Switch 2, as we've seen that Sega has already supported the Nintendo Switch 2 out of the gate. Of course, Yakuza 0, the director's cut for that game, did launch with the Switch 2 console back in June, so I think older Like a Dragon or Yakuza games launching on the Switch 2 would be big for both Nintendo and RGG Studios. And let's hope RGG puts the games actually on the cartridge this time, after the whole backlash that happened with Yakuza 0 Director's Cut being a game key card. With it being announced though that Sonic Racing Cross Worlds will actually be all on the cartridge, it seems Sega may have learned their lesson after Sonic X Shadows Generation sold poorly on the Switch 2 at launch. Regardless though, I want to know down in the comment section what you think about Sony launching their games on other consoles and what this means for them, as well as just gaming in general. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like, as it helps me out a lot. And of course, if you're new to the channel or returning to the channel and not subscribed, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of the JRPG as well as just gaming content that I have planned coming down the pipeline very soon. Thank you so much for watching though, and I am out. Peace.